Hello, I'm John Benton, and this is an NCAA tournament preview. Smooth shooting Wisconsin, high-flying Arkansas, fast-paced North Carolina, non-stop swarming VCU, and ultra-talented Arizona are among the teams vying to be the last team standing in the Wild Wild West. A quick note before we get started. I will be using 4 stats prevalently from KenPom.com, a college basketball analyticals website run by Ken Pomeroy. 3 are adjusted offense, adjusted defense, and adjusted tempo, which measure how well a team would perform offensively and defensively, as well as how many possessions they would average per game against an average Division I team. The 4th stat is the luck rating, which is essentially a percentage of how many close games and blowouts a team wins or loses. The more close the wins and the more blowout losses they have, the luckier the team. We start in the West with the Wisconsin Badgers, who are in the #1 seed in this region. The Badgers, for their part, went 31-3 and will be making their 17th straight appearance in the Big Dance. One fun fact is that they've been top 4 in the Big Ten in all 14 years of Bo Ryan's tenure at Wisconsin. They won both the Big Ten regular season and tournament title this year for the first time each since they did both in 2008. Last year, of course, they made it to the Final Four for the first time in Bo Ryan's career before they were finally stopped by the Big Blue of Kentucky. Wisconsin's road to their 2nd straight Final Four will be led by 7-foot sweet shooting center Frank Kaminsky, who won Big Ten Player of the Year and will almost certainly be a first-team All-American nationally. Wisconsin will be playing the 16th seeded Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Coastal Carolina, who went 24-9 out of the Big South and owns the best name in the tournament this side of UC Irvine, will be making their 2nd straight appearance in the Big Dance. Last year they pushed 1-seeded Virginia as a 16 seed to an eventual 70-59 loss that earned them a lot of respect in the college basketball sphere. In order to go all the way and shock the world this year, combo guard Warren Gillis is going to have an amazing game, but it's very possible, even if it's highly improbable. Possessing the 8th seed in the West Regional is the Oregon Ducks out of the Pac-12. The Ducks went 25-9 this year and are going to be making their 3rd straight appearance in the NCAA tournament. 2 years ago, the Ducks made the Sweet 16, and last year they nearly did. They almost upset Wisconsin, but fell short in the closing minutes, and a very entertaining 85-77 win for the Badgers. This year, if the Ducks are going to make the Sweet 16, they're going to have to do the same thing, most likely. They're going to have to get through Wisconsin. This year's Ducks team has been a fantastic project for Dana Altman. After having 3 key contributors to the basketball team kicked off the team in the preseason, Oregon was an afterthought in the Pac-12. However, with Ken Palm's 16th ranked adjusted offense, powered by Pac-12 Player of the Year Joseph Young, Oregon rose from potential Pac-12 bottom dweller to a sure tournament team in 2 months. One of the greatest turnarounds I've seen in my days watching the NCAA tournament. Oregon doesn't get their shot at Wisconsin just yet, though. They'll first have to get past the Oklahoma State Cowboys in the 8-9 game. Okie State went 18-13 this year, and they'll be making their 3rd straight appearance in the NCAA tournament. Over the offseason, they lost enigmatic lottery pick Marcus Smart and the solid big man Markel Brown from last year's talented but ultimately disappointing team that ended up crashing out in the 1st round of the tournament. However, senior forward LeBron Nash had a very good year this year, as did sharpshooting guard Phil Forte III, and they led the Pokes to a very solid season against a tough schedule, which leads to them having their shot at the Ducks. With the 4 seed in the West Regional, it's one of the most prolific teams in all of college basketball, the North Carolina Tar Heels. The Tar Heels went 24-11 this year in the regular season, and they'll be making their 5th straight tournament appearance. The preseason buzz in Chapel Hill was about the preseason ACC Player of the Year Marcus Page, but overall North Carolina had a solid Bernati League season, reflected with their 4 seed. Page was mercurial, and overall he was good, but he was not amazing. He was not everything he was hyped up to be. However, he is among the most valuable players in the nation. If he shoots well, UNC often wins, as was shown in their run to the ACC tournament final. However, this is due to the fact that he's really UNC's only huge perimeter threat. North Carolina's funny in that they combine a lot of inside players such as Bryce Johnson, Justin Jackson, JP Takoto, and Kennedy Meeks, with the 10th fastest adjusted tempo in the NCAA, which is the 3rd fastest in the tournament behind BYU and Arkansas. Playing North Carolina, though, is going to be a team that loves to muck it up, and that would be the Harvard Crimson. Harvard went 22-7 in the Ivy League, and they'll be making their 4th straight tournament appearance. Last year, they upset the 5th-seeded Cincinnati Bearcats as a 12 seed, and the year before they upsetted 3rd seed New Mexico as a 14 seed. This year's team led by point guard Siani Chambers, guard Wesley Saunders, and Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year, the Cameroonian forward Steve Mondumisi. This year's road to the tournament was not all easy for Harvard, though. They were down 1 game on Yale headed into the final game of the year, and they needed to beat Brown, and they also needed Dartmouth to beat Yale, which they eventually did on a buzzer beater to force a 1-game playoff. As the Ivy League doesn't have a conference tournament, they instead award their bid to the regular season conference winner. In that playoff against the Yale Bulldogs, Mondumisi ended up hitting the game-winning shot with 7 seconds left, and they're here now, so why can't the Crimson win a big one 3 years in a row? Moving on, we have the 5 seed in the West Regional, the Arkansas Razorbacks. The Hogs, who are 26-8 and they're making their first appearance in the tournament since 2008, are a very, very fun team to watch. That much is for certain. They're 21st in the nation in adjusted offense, and they run the 9th fastest tempo, which is good for 2nd in the tournament. The Razorbacks possess 3 guards who love to score in Michael Qualls, Rashad Madden, and Antoine Bell. And they also happen to possess the SEC Player of the Year, the beastly forward Bobby Portis. With that slew of players, Arkansas can challenge anybody in the entire tournament. Playing against Arkansas will be the Wofford Terriers, who went 28-6 out of the Southern Conference. Wofford, who possesses a logo very similar to that of Wikipedia, is going to be making their 2nd straight appearance in the tournament in their 4th and 6th years. Wofford likes to murk it up very much, and most of the offense goes through guard Carl Cochran, who is the SoCon Player of the Year. The Wofford University campus may be in Spartanburg, South Carolina, but the Terriers basketball team must practice in Las Vegas. Terriers are the luckiest team in the country according to KenPom, and nothing more illustrates this fact than the fact they won the SoCon auto bid with a 3-point win against the last place team in the conference, the Furman Paladins, in the SoCon Championship. Next up, we have the 3rd seed in the West Regional, the Baylor Bears out of Waco, Texas. The Bears went 24-9 out of the Big 12 Conference, and they'll be making their 2nd straight appearance in their 5th and 8th seasons. Despite making 5 and 8 seasons, though, this is the first time in program history that the Bears will be making back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances. Quite a mind-blowing stat there, and that speaks to the futility that the Bears endured over a half a century. Over the offseason, they lost a lot of talent, but they finished surprisingly high in the Big 12. They were led by point guard Kenny Cherry, their leading scorer forward Torian Prince, and the nation's leading rebounder Rico Gathers, a cousin of the late great Hank Gathers of Loyola Marymount. Playing the Bears in the first round will be 14th seeded Georgia State Panthers, who went 24-9 out of the Sun Belt Conference. The Panthers will be making their first appearance since 2001, and they possess quite the backcourt. Their 2 starters are Kentucky transfer Ryan Harrow, who may not be 100% healthy after a hamstring strain, and their leading scorer RJ Hunter, who is the son of coach Ron Hunter. And on the bench is the Louisville transfer guard Kevin Ware, who very infamously suffered a gruesome leg injury in the Elite Eight against Duke that caused him to be the focus of social media for months. Georgia State won their bid against Georgia Southern in one of the ugliest games I've ever seen, a 38-36 win for the Panthers, and very fittingly, Panthers coach Ron Hunter tore his Achilles in the celebration. They're here though, so that's all that matters. Next, we got the 6th-seeded Xavier Musketeers out of the Big East. The Musketeers went 21-13, and they'll be making their 2nd straight appearance and their 13th out of the last 16 years. Last year, they were eliminated in the first 4. They don't have to worry about this year. In fact, they'll be playing the winner of a play-in game between BYU and Ole Miss. This year's Xavier team made a run to the Big East Tournament Finals, and they've been led all year by big man Matt Stainbrook, their leading scorer and rebounder. They've been to the Sweet 16 in 4 of the past 6 tournament appearances, and the bracket sets up pretty decently. They may well do it again. Like said earlier, playing them will be the winner between BYU and Ole Miss. First up is the Brigham Young Cougars out of the West Coast Conference. BYU went 25-9, and they'll be making their 2nd straight appearance in the tournament and their 8th out of their last 9. The Cougars of Provo, Utah are led by slasher Tyler Hawes, the 3rd leading scorer nationally and the highest scoring senior in the country. They also possess guard Kyle Collinsworth, who has 6 triple doubles all year. He's basically the NCAA's answer to Russell Westbrook. Not only that, but BYU is the only team that can claim to have beaten the Gonzaga Bulldogs in Spokane this year, so BYU can definitely beat the best of the best. Will they be able to beat the rest of the rest, though? They'll be playing the Ole Miss Rebels out of the SEC. Mississippi went 20-12 this year, and they'll be making their first appearance since 2013, back when they were led by the mercurial guard Marshall Henderson. This year's Ole Miss team is led by the junior forward Stephon Moody and point guard Jarvis Summers. Ole Miss perhaps came the closest to beating Kentucky of anybody this year. They lost 89-86 in overtime in Lexington, which may well be the most impressive loss of any high conference team in the country. Now we got the 2 seed out of the West Regional, the Arizona Wildcats. Arizona went 31-3 this year. They'll be making their 3rd straight appearance in the tournament and their 29th out of their last 31 years. Quite an incredible run there by Zona. They're the 2nd best team on KenPom.com in the nation, which is pretty incredible for a team that's got a 2 seed, but they are seeded number 2 because their 3 losses came to teams outside of the tournament: the UNLV Rebels, the Arizona State Sun Devils, and the Oregon State Beavers. That being said, this Wildcats team is led by forwards Stanley Johnson, Brandon Ashley, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, Caleb Tarczewski, and TJ McConnell. That is quite the fearsome fivesome right there. And hey, if Arizona only loses to teams outside of the tournament, then they can't possibly lose inside the tournament, right? Playing Zona, though, is going to be a team that has the flair for the upset. Texas Southern Tigers, who went 22-12 and will be making their 2nd straight appearance in the tournament. They lost one of last year's top scorers in the nation, Eric Murray, to graduation, but the loss of Murray has been eased by the great play by senior guard Madarius Gibbs. Of course, Texas Southern has 2 wins over power conference teams this year. They beat both Michigan State and Kansas State on their own home floors. Quite the impressive pair of upsets right there, especially the one against Michigan State. And getting a 15th seed in the process, not quite bad for the winner of a bid from the conference consistently rated the worst in Division I, the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And now we have the 7th seed out in the Western Regional, the Virginia Commonwealth Rams. VCU went 26-9 this year out of the Atlantic 10, and they'll be making their 5th straight appearance in the tournament. They made their name known to the basketball world with a Final Four run as an 11 seed in 2011, and since then they've continued to be a force in college basketball with Coach Shaka Smart's Havoc defense, which consists of non-stop full-court pressure from the Rams defense all game. That Havoc defense was weakened by the loss of star point guard Briante Weber to a torn ACL earlier in the year. Weber was 12 steals away from the all-time steals record in the NCAA history, but forward Trevion Graham and point guard Jaquan Lewis will try to carry VCU on, and they're going to need all they can against the Big Ten's Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State, the 10 seed in the West here, went 23-10 during the regular season, and they'll be making their 7th straight tournament appearance. D'Angelo Russell. This team begins and ends with D'Angelo Russell. Sure, they have some other important players. They have a big man in Sam Thompson and a point guard Shannon Scott, who are both important role players, and they have other players. But honestly, D'Angelo Russell carries this team. The Buckeyes around him have been maddeningly inconsistent all year, but D'Angelo Russell has played consistently well enough to throw his name into the discussion for #1 overall pick in this upcoming draft for the NBA. Throughout NCAA history, players like Danny Manning of Kansas, Carmelo Anthony of Syracuse, and Kemba Walker and Shabazz Napier of Connecticut have showed us that one player can put a team on their back and win a championship. The truly great ones can, at least. Is D'Angelo Russell game? If you haven't seen them, check out my previews for the Midwest, East, and South regionals.